Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. I am Bree, and today I am joined by author Amanda Cinelli. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. Tell me how 2023 has started off for you.
It started off with me on deadline, as usual, which is kind of normal for me. I live on deadline. And then every time I'm on deadline, my kids get sick, which is just how things go in this house. It's like a rule. It's like a rule we all abide by. We all live in the madness. And then celebrating my 10th book with Harlequin, which was a lovely milestone to hit.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think 10 books is a really wonderful milestone to have hit. You know, because it's like you can, one still, like your first books is still like, you can remember that time. And it's like, I did that thing 10 books ago. And like here, I don't know. I feel like 10 is like this hurdle of like, okay, I made it. I made it here. I can keep going. Like, does it feel like that for you?
Yeah, it didn't beforehand. And then kind of once the week came and I prepared to kind of like share my graphic, I suppose, to be like, hey, everybody, you know, this is my 10th book. I kind of sat with it and I was like, wow, you know, I don't know. It's like a mixed feeling where I thought I would have hit it a lot sooner than I did, but I also thought I was going to give up at some point during the middle point of there, like around book 4 or 5. I kind of was like,
exactly. Yeah.
I won't be able to do this. And then I did, and I kept writing book after book. And so, yeah, it does feel like it's kind of like the first big milestone that I've hit, you know, apart from like my debut.
Like at what book do you feel like you, looking back on it, you're like, okay, I have really found my rhythm and I'm comfortable in this rhythm? Like what book was it for you?
I think when I wrote the second book in the Avalar twins duet, which was Returning to Claim His Heir, that was an amnesia book. And it was a very personal book. And I definitely felt like I leveled up on that book.
Yeah.
And then that's when I decided to write this trilogy. That's when I kind of was like, can I write a trilogy? Can I write a trilogy that's linked together? Yeah, let's just do it, you know? I kind of was like, okay, let's just see how it goes.
Yeah, like I'm in the groove now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I think we must have talked the last time that we talked, it had to have been around the new year as well, because I feel like we talked about your word of the year. So what is your word of the year this year?
This year it's belief.
Okay.
And I've been struggling with my journaling so far this year. My journal has felt just really blank, like I'm not very present with it, which is weird for me. Because I'm usually I write in it every day. I keep track of stuff. But this year I'm focusing on a very kind of internal locus of, I don't know, control and ambition, where I'm like, I want to believe in what I'm writing. I want to believe in myself. I want to believe in my ability to hit my deadlines and, you know, maybe try for some new things. There's a few new kind of projects that I possibly have my eye on, and it's very much fear that's holding me back. So instead of fear in 2023, I'm going to be aiming for belief.
I love that. And I totally get the journaling thing. Like I really got back into it, I'd say summer of 2022. And I remember like May 1st being like, okay, you're going to write every day. Like I gave myself this challenge because I kept diaries all throughout my childhood. And then it was like, as soon as I became a mom, like it became harder to journal. And then before I knew it, like I was going years without doing it. But like I follow this YouTuber, and her channel's all about journaling. And she hit this point where her mom was like, you're living too much in the journal. Like you need to like kind of set it aside and actually live life. And I'm like, I think sometimes we need to hear that advice too. Like it's okay to set it down and not do the thing so much.
Yeah, definitely. I think I can get very stuck in my goals. And sometimes like me and my husband were only talking about this the other day. It's like my toxic trait is setting goals that I know I'm not going to hit. And when I set the goal, like I set the little box to be ticked in the journal, and then I don't tick the box. And it's almost like this, I don't know what it is. It's like this self-sabotage kind of thing where I'm like, You're going to
Yes.
write 5,000 words today, and here's five little bubbles that you're going to tick off. And like, I know I don't write 5,000 words a day. That's not my speed. But I still do it to myself.
Yeah. You still wrote the box.
And then I kind of go to myself, look, you didn't hit that goal, Amanda. Like,
Yes.
what's that about? You know? So yeah, I'm trying to be a little bit more present, and I'm trying to work on, like, I don't know, writing in the moment, living in the moment. It's like, what
Yeah.
I write today is my speed. And I suppose trying to balance that out with setting those goals and hitting the delivery dates on books and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know, there has to be a sweet spot there somewhere, doesn't there?
Yeah. Yes.
There somewhere. I'll tell you if I find it.
I think it can be difficult, especially in today's world where like you have so much advice coming from all over the place and people are like screaming, you should journal for mental health, journal for wellness. And it's like,
So aware of like everyone else's process. We're so aware of what everyone is doing because we're all so, everyone is online in some capacity. Well, most people are, especially like, most authors, we have to be online to promote ourselves. And it's very hard to not look at other people's kind of process and other people's day to day routine and kind of compare it to your own and be like,
yes.
I don't write that much every day. I don't, have all of these cool offices that people seem to have.
My smoothie doesn't look that green.
Going on their fancy writers retreats to like
Right.
all over the world. I'm like, hey. So yeah, I think it's like bringing it back to yourself, bringing it back to myself for me this year is very important, and kind of being present in the moment and believing in myself kind of where I am rather than always reaching for those big lofty goals that I set for myself. So
Yeah.
like celebrating this milestone was important to me because I'm sitting with something that has already happened. I can't take it away from myself because I've done it.
You did it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of a moment that I wasn't expecting to hit that hard. And it was really nice. It was really, really nice.
Are you sad to see the series go?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. It's really hard, especially this last book. Um, like this last book was the hardest because that was it. You
That
know,
was it. Yeah.
and I can't just invent more brothers.
Is there
There's
like a I'm assuming for each book comes with its own pressure. Like the first book is the first book. So like I can only imagine the freaking out that goes with that. And then I'm assuming like that second book has its own kind of pressure cuz like it's the second. And then there's the third. Like
yeah,
okay, like we're talking people about Pregnant in the Italians Palazzo, which is fantastic. Like talk about the pressure for that third book.
yeah, the big finale. Like I'd hinted at this hero from the start. The first two brothers, they know each other already. They're half brothers. They had a very brief relationship, and then they got into a big fight, and they were estranged. And then this book is set around the inheritance, where their father has died, and he set an inheritance kind of stipulation in the will, where the first one of his heirs to marry and stay married for 1 year can inherit his entire estate. But they didn't realize there was a third brother, and he was a big secret. And the reason he's a secret is because he's from a very wealthy, very kind of blue-blooded Italian family, and he didn't even know that he was this guy's son. He didn't know that his father was not his father. So hinting at him and hinting at the fact that he's a reclusive, very wealthy, very powerful man. I really felt the pressure to bring it with him, because you see nothing of him for those first two books. He's only hinted at. And then Arya was in the very first book. She's the bridesmaid. So in the very first book, the bride is getting ready, and her best friend comes in with her wedding dress and is like, yay, it's your wedding day. Arya. And then so like the bride says, you go on ahead to the wedding and I'll be there in a minute. And poor Arya, she goes to the wedding and she walks out of the courthouse and everyone is gone.
Everyone's gone.
The whole wedding has just gone to pot, and it's just chaos, and there's security running everywhere, and she's flipping out because she's a very feisty woman, and she's like, "What's happening? Where's my friend?" So that's where we meet her. That's
So
where
what was
she.
one of your like personal favorite scenes from the book? Because I love that beginning scene. It felt like kind of like an old Hollywood movie. Like I imagined it in black and white. It's raining and she's standing there, and then she looks over and there's this gorgeous man standing there, and it's like, oh, you need to go to London. I have a private jet. Like, what was your favorite?
That's pretty normal for people, isn't it? It's like, oh no, I don't have a ride home to London.
Right.
And a guy just turns up like, hey, I've got a jet.
This
Uh,
was true presents hero moment.
oh yeah, I really wanted to. Like my whole vibe with this book was that he is like a very old school presents
He
hero.
was. Yes. Okay. I love to hear you say that. Yes.
Like, I wanted her to be like a non like an anti presents heroine, or like a very self aware presents heroine. Because every time I tried to put her in a situation that was very classically presents, she would kind of be like, "Are you seriously doing this right now?" Like that's the
Yes.
dialogue that would come out when I was writing her, and I ended up changing the entire first act of this book as a result of her not cooperating with my plot. Basically. But yeah, so the scene, my favorite scene from this book. So after their first love scene, they get on the jet and they hit it off, and the chemistry is great, and they have their first love scene. But my favorite moment was right afterwards, where like it's almost like they've been in this fever dream together, and
Yes.
very primal, it's very visceral, and then it's over, and the two of them are just like alone together, and they are still strangers. They've just met, and it's very kind of sobering. And then Inicio is so overwhelmed by his own reaction. He feels this very visceral pull towards her, and making love hasn't taken that away. It's only made it worse for him.
Yes.
He's freaking out a bit at how much he's feeling, and he's not used to feeling things this much, because he's so stoic and reclusive. And then, of course, like Arya is looking at this man, kind of brooding and looking very distant, and she's like, "Oh God, he must be regretting everything."
Yes. She thinks he's regretting it.
But
Yes.
like, she's quite confident in herself, so she's just like, "Okay, I'm going to get dressed."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, that's over there. And he's like, "No, no, 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 no." He very quickly is like, "Oh no, 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 no." Let me make
Yes.
this very clear. Let me make this very clear to you. I do not regret anything. And he makes it very clear that he's like, if you want to, have fun all the way to London, we can. But I love, there's a moment where he notices her bra and the details on her bra, and she says, "Oh, I made it myself." And he's like, "What? You're a fashion designer?" And I just love this moment, like they're semi naked in an airplane bathroom, and they've just made love, and he's like so awed by her passion for her work and her craftsmanship on this bra that she's made, like 'cause she's a lingerie designer, and she made it as a part of her college course. And it's just everything I wanted to convey with them, as like this opposites attract coupling. It's that moment where like you can see how good they could be together if they got their shit together, basically. I wanted to show like that they do fit, because I knew what I was about to put them through.
That moment on the plane, like the moment after, felt
Yeah.
like true presents hero. Like they're literally on his private jet. So there's the money, there's the wealth there. But she is driving him mad. Like he is instantly crazy about her. And she's just like, whatevs. you know? I was like, oh
Like,
gosh, this is like classic presents moment.
she's so in control.
Yes, yes. It's driving him mad. He's crazy about her. I just loved it. I loved that both of them are neurodivergent. So, what did you enjoy about writing two neurodivergent characters finding love?
I didn't set out to make all of these, like so many characters in this series, be neurodivergent. It just kind of happened.
Hmm.
And I think it's because like there's always a lot of me in my characters, and I think that's a normal thing for writers to draw upon their own experiences. And of course, like I wrote Priya, the heroine in the first book, she had anxiety, and then Pandora in the second book was autistic. But with Arya and Nisio, I think I dug even deeper into some of like my own very personal feelings. And they felt very close to a lot of my own experiences, like some of Aria's childhood, her creativity, her struggle to focus, and then Nisio's social anxiety, his panic attacks, and his tendency to self isolate just to hold his world together. You know, he's a complete control freak like I am. Um, and someone actually asked me if Nisio is coded autistic, and it's something I wrestled with while drafting, because I was about halfway through writing this book when I was talking to my husband about a plotting issue that I had, and he just kind of assumed that Nisio was autistic, and I was like, oh wait, is he? And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, okay.
Wow. Yeah.
But because he didn't know, and because I hadn't planned it, I just decided, like I was going to write another epilogue. I thought about writing another epilogue where he discovers, or he has that discovery. But category is like 50,000 words, you know, it's quite tight. And this book is about their love story, showing how they're two people who really understand one another. And I just wanted to keep the focus on that. So I was quite happy to leave him as autistically coded, I think is how I would phrase it. And I think it's just like, so many other people have blamed them for their differences and tried to change them in their life. And that's the one thing they do not do with one another. And I just love that. Like, they have other issues to overcome, trust and a baby on the way, and where are they going to live and stuff like that. But they never struggle with that connection between them, that understanding. And I really enjoyed writing that because that's kind of how my relationship is, my marriage. And it's this just kind of ease of communication when two
Yeah.
people are divergent, and I don't know, it's like an acceptance. And you might not have the exact same way of seeing things or doing things, but you understand that you're both different in that way, and you both see things differently and perceive the world differently. So yeah, I think that's just a thing. Like most of my friends who are neurodivergent, it's the same thing. It's, I don't know, you just feel things differently, you see things differently, and the communication tends to be quite deep and quite
Yeah. I like that his was kind of open-ended in a way. Like you could tell there was something, but the love, the romance and everything they had going on was still the focus.
Yeah, like Aria could tell. Like when I read a few parts of the book back, there's lines where she, like, I'm saying this as if I didn't write it, but like, it's so weird when you write a book and you don't remember writing it. But like she would say things like she had to like explain things a certain way because he didn't understand them the first time, and just things like that, you know, small details. So it is there, but it's not something. It's just something I decided not to make as, I don't know, closed, as clearly labeled as it was in the second book, because I think there's so many people out there who are undiagnosed and who just,
Yes.
and I kind of like the idea that he felt so accepted, and he, you know, he carved his own path in the world to such an extent that he, you know, he wasn't too held back in life, you know, and he's a billionaire, which helps, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That helps, that's gotta help, you know, that's privilege right there.
So I have to talk scenes. Was it the Mile High hotness scene or rainy Manhattan scene? Which one came to you first, or was it neither? Was it something else?
Well, the Manhattan scene came first,
Okay.
because I know that's where they were at this
Hmm.
disaster wedding. The first draft, like I said to you, the first draft was actually very different. I honestly didn't know how to even, like, so the very first draft of this book, there was some intrigue with Nisio trying to hide his big secret, and it was almost, I think I was reading a lot of dark romance at the time.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
so there was almost like a mafia style feud, okay, in the first draft of this book.
Okay, because the last time we talked, like I was thinking this book was going to be a little dark because the last time we talked. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Like in the original draft, Arya followed Nisio's car to this very kind of bacchanalian house party, because Nisio's based on Dionysus. It's a Dionysus and Ariadne inspired kind of theme going through this book. And Dionysus is like the god of chaos and parties and wine. So she follows him to this house party, and then they have to escape from it because things went south. And he quite literally took her prisoner in his palazzo to keep his secret from the press. So, like, prisoner in the Italian's palazzo was the original
Oh
draft.
my gosh.
Basically, is the vibe I was going for. But my editor at the time, Charlotte Ellis, she worked with me on the three Greeks Race to the Altar books. And we just had a chat and we just decided, because of the way their story went, it was too much. And as their characters came to me, I had to make that decision, like I said, to focus on their love story. Because they had they had so much going on already.
Yeah.
And I think I was trying to force more plot where it wasn't needed, because they already had so much conflict. They already had so much emotional, kind of internal conflict going on. It was far too much. And it didn't work, especially because Arya would not cooperate.
Right.
This woman, oh my God. Like, basically the conversation I had with my editor was like, would she actually allow herself to be taken prisoner?
Exactly. No.
Not a chance. Not a chance would she allow it. So yeah, that had to be scrapped. And I had to have him offer to take her to London. She demanded a lot more agency than I was prepared to initially give. So it was kind of a, wrestling with my own character
Yeah.
situation.
I love that Arya basically
Very,
told you what to do.
she's ferocious. I put too much of myself in her, I think. Far too much.
We'll talk about writing surprise pregnancy, because I mean, it's such a vehicle for so much of what happens in this book. So like, what inspired the surprise pregnancy trope for the book, and yeah, talk about writing it.
Yeah, like, I love, this was actually my first surprise pregnancy book where the conception happened on page. But it's always been one of my favorite tropes to read, especially in presents. And from the start, I knew this was going to be a pregnancy book. I knew that she was going to fall pregnant. It was kind of one of the only details I knew, really, other than that it was going to begin at that wedding. But I adore the emotion of the surprise pregnancy trope. The physical, like, OMG, she's nauseous. She's feeling tired, isn't she?
Yes.
The drama of, like, two people having their world exploded with this news. And then I have this hero who has a family secret, and he's decided right at the start of this book that he's not going to bring a child into this lie that he's been living.
Yeah.
It's really important to him, because he's lived under so much stress, kind of as the only heir to this really, really old blue-blooded Italian family. He's determined to be an eternal bachelor, and I wanted to throw this at him because I'm evil. I was just like, yes, this is what he's getting. But like, as far as writing it, for me, I really wanted to show that Inicio was already falling for Arya before the pregnancy. That was really important to me, that he wasn't just like, oh, you're pregnant, I love you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really wanted to show that the connection was always there. And it was really important to me to show that Arya acknowledged that, like, she has a choice, to show her choosing to continue with the pregnancy because she actually wants to become a mother, that her conflict wasn't in feeling trapped in the pregnancy, but it was about her fear of allowing herself to ever hope for a family of her own in that kind of traditional sense, because of her own fears about marriage and love and trusting someone to kind of keep her and not abandon her. So the pregnancy in this story is like the catalyst in their journey from being two messy, anxious people in a very exciting but physical fling to getting it together and choosing to actually become a family. So that's kind of what I loved about writing it.
Oh, I loved the scene where she walks in and she's like, he's reading what to expect when expecting. Oh, I was like, oh, he is like totally all in this. And she's like, she acknowledges the pregnancy and she's happy about it. But hers is...
She's like, oh God, this is not happening. I'm just going to walk around really fast around this palace and just see what's around.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, he's making sure he has all the details because he's a complete nerd, and he has to be completely competent in all areas of life. So... presents hero,
Yes.
Presents hero doesn't do anything by halves. He's going to be the best daddy that ever was. He's going to be the best.
I think he even tells her like at one point he's like, "Well, if you're this far along, this is, you could just tell like he's been reading the books and he's like rattling off information." And I'm like, "Oh my god, that is the sweetest thing ever."
Because he craves the facts.
Yeah.
He needs to know exactly what's going on at all times, and she just wants to vibe through life. She just wants an adventure. She doesn't want to be tied down, and he's just like, no, this is not how we're doing it. Opposites attract.
Well, I love that the epilogue is the same as it's like set at the same time and place as the previous two books. So was that easy or tricky? How did you feel doing that?
Oh, I don't know. Like, it was an idea I had at the very start because I knew they all were going to begin in the same place. I was like, oh, do you know what would be really fun? Let's end it in the exact same place too. I think it was like when I was writing the second book, my poor husband, he has to listen to all of my breakdowns. And I was like, why did I decide to do this? Why did I pen myself into this, very tight timeline when I'm terrible with time and I'm terrible with numbers? So I don't know. In my head, they're real. So when I'm writing, it's like watching a movie and I'm just kind of cutting to a different camera.
Yeah.
But I still had to reread to make sure I wasn't messing up the details. I tried to show them interacting as a family group and then also as a couple to get that balance in each epilogue. And I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. I think overall, like, it was a very ambitious project for me to write a trilogy. I'd never written a trilogy before, and then to link them so closely was extra challenging. So I think I'm really happy with how it turned out. But
Yeah.
in the end,
I loved it. I mean, I love when you have those books like they can definitely stand on their own, but I don't know. I think there's just something special too about having a trilogy or a series where it's like, yeah, you should definitely read these back to back. Like read them in order because there is that connection there. I feel like we don't see a lot of that anymore and it's just something special to see.
yeah, I love to read stuff. Like I'm a series reader, so I think it's only natural I'm going to be a more of a series writer. And I love like little Easter eggs, and I love seeing older characters repeated, and you just get a tiny glimpse of where they are, and the world is kind of kept going. It's like that soap opera kind of feeling where
Yeah.
you're always moving to different couples and different family units, and but everyone else is still there living their lives. And I just think it's very immersive. I love series because it's so immersive, and you can really just like, I think all romance series readers, like, you read like 20 books in a month. You forget what life looks like, and it's just the best. It really is just the best. So that's what I'm trying to recreate.
Well, talking about romance readers,
Yeah.
we may have heard that you love and enjoy monster romances. Tell me all the things. Like when did you pick up your first monster romance? What inspired this reading venture for you? And do you have any favorites you'd like to share?
I never read monster. I never thought I read monster romance, but like, I think if you're a paranormal reader, you've read monster romance because there's an overlap there. Like I started reading the Immortals After Dark series in, I think, 2018, twenty
Hmm.
nineteen. And there's a couple of books in that would definitely be classed as monster romance because there's like a feral demon who is like half demon, half vampire, and he doesn't speak any other language. He lives in a cave, and like and the heroine has to teach him how to speak and wash himself and
Yeah.
everything. That's
I
amazing.
love that you said that because I've had that question like, is there a difference between paranormal and monster romance?
I think I don't know. Like, I'm not a scholar of the subject, I don't think, but I have my opinions as a reader. And I think like monster, like, obviously paranormal is like, paranormal is like alongside normal life.
Hmm.
That's kind of the definition between fantasy romance and paranormal, isn't it? Where like fantasy is complete fantasy. It's not, there's no reality. Whereas paranormal is like fantasy alongside a normal life timeline kind of thing. I think someone's probably going to get annoyed at me for that definition, but I'm
I
going with
agree. I agree.
I'm going with it. So, like, for me, monster romance can be in paranormal and it can be in fantasy. And I think like the whole monster thing is that it's not. I don't know. It's just completely inhuman. There's no. It's completely a non-human character, and they're kind of scary, and they're kind of very different, and that's the kind of draw because they're so completely different. Like I've read I think one of the first ones that I read was Morning Glory Milk and Farm, which is a minute.
Okay. I remember that one circulating around.
Miss Costa is the author. She's I think it's a she. I think she's a she. She's written loads of monster romance, like a real queen of the genre. Um, so like the first one I read was the Morning Glory Milking Farm, but like they're quite like that would be quite a sweet romance almost because like it's like a very cozy small town monster romance. So
Mm.
you've got that kind of vibe, and then she's got like a Mothman in that same universe as well. So like you've got a Minotaur, you've got a moth. There's like
Oh my gosh.
anything goes in that universe. There's all these different creatures, and they all have very different kind of cultures and anatomy, and it's very interesting, shall we say? A very interesting experience.
The
Again,
first one that I read was The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." I get it now. I get it.
The Dragon's Bride, like I love the way Katie Roberts set up that series because she's got human women entering into deals with a demon who then brings them in to like monster buffet of like which one which
Yeah.
one you pick, and they all just get auctioned off to their own monster. Like it's fabulous. It's a fabulous series premise. And then I love the way like she writes that kind of consent piece where like even though these women have been auctioned off to literal monsters, they have like complete consent, they have complete autonomy. It's just
Yeah.
fantastic. Like that's the fantasy is like you're in this absolutely terrifying scary realm, or you're in your own world with this absolutely terrifying scary very different creature, and everything's going to be okay, like that's like romance on steroids. Really. It really is. It's like we always promise the HEA, but like, how can you get a HEA with like a literal demon? Like one of the books I read last year, it's like a literal sleep paralysis demon.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
Bring Me to Sleep by RM Virtues. And like the heroine is going through the roughest time of her life. She's got PTSD. She's having to take, medication to sleep after a very traumatic event. And she falls in love with her sleep paralysis demon.
Because I mean, perfection. I mean, what else?
How can you get that to a HEA? It's fantastic. And the craft involved and just it's entertainment, it's cathartic, it's scary, it's just fantastic. I absolutely love it. And then you can't talk about monster romance without talking about the orcs, which I think that's what the writing retreat ladies were talking about, because there was a group chat. There was a group chat situation with Pippa Roscoe and Amy Andrews. And I think Heidi Rice was in the group chat at the time because we were planning this writing retreat and I ended up not being able to go. But I suggested that they read, or I think I had previously suggested to Pippa that she should read A Lady and the Orc. Sorry, The Lady and the Orc by Finlay Fenn. Because I'd read it and I was absolutely shocked by it. And I am a menace, so I of course suggested it to Pippa to read. And she texted me back like, "What did you just tell me to read? This is absolutely crazy." And then of course we suggested it to the group chat to spread the love.
As you do.
I love the entertainment of it. I love that you can like, because I just love talking about romance novels with people because it's my life. I'm obsessed. So yeah, I get very giddy and they're just so silly, but they're also like really great human stories. You
Yeah.
know, I don't
I
know.
just love this moment that we're like living in romance right now. It's it's fantastic.
It's like the pandemic just like created this space for just anything goes. Like already anything could go, but I think people were more willing to just go a bit nuts of like, do you know what? I'm just gonna write this sleep paralysis demon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write an orc, living his best life in a mountain. I'm gonna write a dragon.
So are you still in your dark romance era or no?
No, I actually got really into hockey romance at the end of 2022. I don't know how that's
Okay.
wild. It was like the whole of December, I think. Hockey romance, and I'm not usually, because like a lot of the hockey romance is kind of new adult. Like I do like kind of a little bit older. I like to read about people more my age, not like not too young and free to make me feel jealous, you know. So I was surprised that I loved them as much as I did. I was reading Odette Stone. There
Okay.
was or I read basically Odette Stone's entire back catalogue.
Oh, I love when you find an author and you're just like, I'm going
Oh,
to read everything.
they were so bingeable. Like I just love being able to read one after another. And then I forget who else I was reading. Oh, Kate C. Wells
Mhm.
is another author. I've read her entire back catalogue. My God, fantastic. She has somehow managed to write dark romance, small town romance, mafia romance, uh, MC, like motorcycle club romance, and paranormal in the same universe. And I
Oh,
don't know how
wow.
she did it. I don't know how she did it. I think I'm like bordering on stalker level with this author, where I'm like, I need to know how you got here, and
Yeah.
I need to know what your process is because I'm fascinated by you.
Oh, I love that.
She writes these rejected fated mates, because I love fated mates trope. And they were brilliant, and I've read all of her books now at this stage. I've harassed many people into reading her back catalogue as well, just so I can talk to them about it.
Yes, like, please
Yeah,
read this book because I need somebody to talk about it with. That's the best.
she writes neurodivergent characters as well. That's one thing. CM Nascosta writes a lot of neurodivergent characters in the monster romances. Like her Mothman is basically coded autistic, and I found that absolutely fascinating to read.
Oh, I love that.
And there's a real comfort in reading those books because it's kind of like the characters are all so different, and the neurodiversity in the community is just so accepted, and because it's like monsters living alongside humans, and the world that she's built is so kind of mixed and different, and I really felt like comfort there. And there's a couple more books that I haven't read that she's written. So I need to get on that. Need to get on my TBR.
From resisting the Sicilian playboy to pregnant in the Italian's Palazzo, do you feel like your writing has evolved any? And if so, how?
Yeah, like I think writing is like every craft, isn't it? You know, like you level up, and like we're constantly growing as people, and naturally that growth is going to have an effect on your creative work, I think. And I definitely think my craft gets better with every book, or it has been getting better, I hope. But I think mainly I feel a lot braver, and more confident in my ability to kind of try new plots, new angles. Like, you know, like before I wrote the trilogy, I never would have thought I was able to write three books that were connected in that kind of way. But I wrote the duology first, and then I moved on to the trilogy. And you know, it's like I think you have to try it and do it to move past it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I've always leaned on very action heavy plots in the past. Like that's my comfort zone. I like a lot of action. I like moving people around. I like having different settings to plop them into. But the book I'm working on at the moment, they're pretty much trapped together in a mountaintop chalet in the snow for most of the book. So I feel like I'm doing something again where I'm like challenging myself.
Yeah, I was
Like,
going to say, definitely a challenge for you.
and you are going to stay in one spot geographically for most of this book, and we're going to see how it goes. But like it's a much more intense, like, it's a very intense book. It's very emotional. It's a lot more internally driven than my previous books. Because I always try and get that balance right, but in this book I'm challenging myself to just see how long I can keep them in this chalet and actually have the plot moving forward. I
Yeah.
don't want to give too much away about the plot because it's not set in stone, but it's kind of a his best friend's widow. He's Henry Golding basically as a Formula One driver.
Oh my gosh.
It's basically a baby making deal.
Okay. 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 I'm very intrigued, very excited.
If it goes well, I'm nearly done with it. It's been I've had this idea for a couple of years, so I've put a lot of pressure on myself to get it right because in my head it's like this, almost like a fever dream of a book for most
Mm,
of it, and then boom, they're back in reality because they're not snowbound anymore. So that's how I want it to go. So we'll see.
I love
I'll
that bravery was the answer to that. That sounds very on brand. And I love that answer. I love that. So now, okay, another one that I didn't send you. So as romance continues to grow and evolve and, category is still doing its thing, how does our presents hero continue to evolve with the time?
Well, I think my present heroes tend to be a balance between that classic alpha and the classic, in command of his world and very wealthy. But my present heroes tend to be very. I think my present heroes are a bit more emotionally aware than the classic present hero. Like I think historically, the present hero, like we used to not even get a POV for the hero. A lot of the stories were single POV. You were only behind the heroine's eyes. You were only seeing what she's seen. And he was quite an enigma. He was
Mhm.
very mysterious, and that was the real brand. That was the like. I think that was a lot of the pull with the 50 Shades of Grey books as well, because he was such an enigma in those books. And it was all kind of, I think a single POV book is that very old school vibe to me. But I think now where we're at, especially kind of culturally or socially where we're at, with billionaires being what they are now and with kind of the world being what it is, I tend to be very conscious of almost trying to create the kind of wealthy men, wealthy heroes that I wish existed more in the world. And I like me personally, I'm very kind of ethically conscious. I'm very environmentally conscious, and I have a lot of beliefs myself. And while I try not to like bash readers over the head with those beliefs, I still try and create a world with characters acting the way I wish they would. Because to me, like that is romance. Having a
Yeah.
hero who is just, he can do anything he wants, but he chooses to do the right thing every time, and he chooses to be the best version of himself. That's romance to me. That's what I want to read. I don't want to read about, like, I love a morally grey hero. I absolutely do. And I can't write them for some reason. I've tried to write them, Brie, so many times. I've tried to write a real bad boy hero, and they always just end up, I don't know, figuring themselves out a little bit. Like, if I ever manage to do it, it will be an absolute triumph.
Talk
But
about a challenge for real.
it's like I just can't write it because I love reading it. Like, I don't know. It's like historicals. I love reading historicals, but I don't think I could ever write one. Um like I would ruin it for myself. But yeah, I can't write people who are doing like deliberately evil, thoughtless things. And I think while I like certain plot lines where the hero is classically cruel in a presency kind of way, I always have to make him be more motivated, or I don't know, like I have to soften it some way. My heroes are just not they're not like alpha holes, and they never will be.
Yeah.
So that's going to be other people's wheelhouse. It's not mine. 100% it's not mine. I can't write them. I have tried.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's okay.
Well, tell us about A Ring to Claim Her Crown, releasing
Yeah,
in July.
I just sent in the final edits on it last week. Yeah, so that's coming out in July, and it's my second chance royal romance. I read through it last week. I sent off the final edits, and it actually made me emotional reading it, and that doesn't happen to me a lot. Like I don't really cry when I read books very often, and especially not my own, because usually I'm too busy criticizing it and going, "Oh my god, it's terrible."
Yeah.
Rewrite the whole thing. But the prologue in this book, because it's a second chance romance, it begins with them at 19, and then it pushes forward. The prologue is them at 19, and then something happens and it pushes forward 14 years. So it's a really big jump to chapter one. And I formulated it that way on purpose because it's inspired by, do you know the Swan Princess animated movie?
Yes. Yes.
So I had this idea a few years ago. I had this idea where the Swan Prince is the one who, like, it's the awkward Swan Prince, and he breaks their engagement and he disappears, and the heroine is an Olympic archery champion who is about to become queen. And I just had this prologue came to me where they fell in love. They were pushed together in like a royal arranged marriage, and she knows about it. She knows that it's arranged, but he doesn't. And so he falls for her and she falls for him, but this kind of miscommunication piece, and it's just really emotional, the kind of conflicts that the both of them have separately. And I just wanted to show where like a couple meets at the wrong time, and they fall for each other at the wrong time, and then when they come back together, they can work it out. And I just it really like, the heroine is Minerva, and she has, so when you meet her 14 years later, she's about to become queen. She has 1 week to select a fiance.
Oh my gosh.
So her mom, the queen, invites some eligible bachelors to the palace, as one does. Um, and the hero basically has spent 14 years at sea brooding. He's a gorgeous ginger bearded pirate.
Oh my gosh.
Like, he's gone from being this gangly, awkward 19-year-old to this massive sailor, basically.
Yes,
Covered
yes.
in
We
tattoos.
need it. We need it. I need to see the cover of this book.
He's like, my husband is like 6'4", very long ginger beard, has some tattoos. So there was a little inspiration there.
Inspiration right there, right?
He was very flattered. He was very flattered. And I love a ginger hero. I absolutely do. So, and I don't think there's enough ginger heroes on the
No,
cover of
yeah. Yeah.
novel. So I was very, again, I harassed the art department, and I really hope they give me my ginger hero. But he arrives, he gets invited under his new pseudonym to this kind of bachelor selection, because they don't know who he is, because he has a new name and a new look. And he's like invited in the fox amongst the hen house, and she sees him, and she's like, oh my god. And it all just kicks off from there. And it's actually probably, there's some real comedic moments in this book. Like, it really was just, I think because I'd been so anxious about getting the trilogy right, I kind of just let myself loose with this one a little bit as like a palate cleanser. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I'm
Oh, that
excited for it.
sounds fantastic. I
Her
can't
name's
wait.
Minerva, which is such a classic historical romance name, and I love it.
I can't wait. Okay, July. I mean, just July just needs to get here so we can get it. And I'm hoping, I know the art department is going to totally just knock it out of the park with our ginger pirate hero. So,
With his big ginger beard.
yes. Lastly, where can everyone keep up with you online?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok procrastinating all the time. So like, I'm never
Your
too
TikTok is fabulous. Everybody, you should be following Amanda on TikTok.
like, I make TikToks and reels, and I try to be funny, but then I get tired and I disappear for a while.
Same, same.
I started up a newsletter, and it's linked in all my bios. So I plan to try and do more giveaways and be charming, once a month or once every couple of months this year. We'll see. It's a work in progress, like myself.
Yay.